Not ready for that. Definitely not ready for that. I'm going to keep this little bit short here because I'm going to put it on the front of another video that was requested by one of our viewers, the history of the Arkansas Traveler. I'm going to apologize in advance because some of the video is turned sideways because the phone cannot distinguish when I'm filming a page which direction is up. I'm going to try and get that turned around before I publish it, but if I can't, some of it's going to be sideways. Thanks for watching, and I appreciate y'all being patient with me here. So here's something I've talked about before that I just wanted to show you guys, just so you don't think I'm crazy. Got a comment here, which usually when you click on it, it allows you to reply. I'm going to click on it. It should take me to the channel. There's the comments for that video. As you can see, that comment is not there. But it's here. But it's not. So then, let me see if it's maybe been flagged for some reason. Wait for it to load. Go to comments. None for review, none that are likely spam. And that guy's comment is nowhere to be found. So, like I said before, I don't purposely try to ignore your comments. Just sometimes they seem to, for some odd reason, disappear. The Arkansas Traveler, according to F.E. Montgomery. Something like a year ago, I believe, I promised my uncle, Mr. W.M. Smith, that I would attempt to write the history of the Arkansas Travelers. This history serves as a link connecting the Montgomery Travelers with the old-time Sledge and Hannah strain. My original blood was selected from the very best matings we had. Now, so far as real facts are concerning as to the original blood, I know very little, only that Nick Arrington fowl of North Carolina served as the foundation on which to build. This North Carolina fowl came into the hands of Colonel Jim Rogers of Arkansas, who fought him for years. The same Rogers fowl was named and became famous as the Arkansas Travelers. Sledge and Hannah and Mr. Sam H. Jones met all comers for years with great success. When I was a small boy, the late W.H. Hackney of Wesson, Mississippi, and my uncle, W.M. Smith, ordered a pen of pure Sledge and Hannah Arkansas Travelers direct from Mr. Sledge. I was only 7 years old, but I remember just as though it were yesterday going to my grandfather's to see these travelers. I can now see the little blue stag, prettiest thing on earth. I had always loved game chickens and had a few that my uncle had given me, but I offered all I had for a stag from this mating. I was assured first choice of the stags, and just as soon as they were large enough to tell roosters from pullets, I went to make my selection. Don't anyone reach the conclusion that only though a boy in my 8th year, I did not know what kind of stag to select. My uncle said when I made my selection he knew that he had lost his best. I brought my stag home and began daily to give him all the feed he would stand. In a few months I had a real stag ready for a good country walk. I had found this colored man on our farm, and as time passed and the stag became a real cock, most 2 years old, he was ready for the pit. One evening my uncle came to my room And what do you suppose he wanted? These country boys were hacking with the Weston boys in 2 weeks, and they, the country boys, wanted to use Arkansas, as I called my cock, in one of these fights. I was assured that nothing on earth could whip my rooster, and when I was offered 25 cents for the use of him, I gladly let him go. Arkansas was the prettiest cock on earth, I thought. He was light dove blue, red, with dark eyes and legs, pea-combed, and weighed 5'10". I knew nothing of how they cut out at all in the hackles and saddle feathers in that day. If I had, he would never have gone. Arkansas proved as good as he looked, whipping the 3-time winner in the first buckle. When he came home trimmed up, I became disgusted with my deal and traded him for a stag. Every year I would exchange for another cock or choice stag and 25 cents, and that was my uncle's way of keeping a good walk. Until this day, my uncle has never denied me obtaining his best cock or stag if I wanted or needed. Time passed and I became 15 years old and knew enough, I thought, to begin breeding for myself. I got a setting of eggs and raised a stag and 5 pullets. The stag was brown-red, had dark eyes and legs. I didn't want to breed my stag to 5 pullets, so I paid my uncle another visit to select a stag from a different yard to breed to these pullets. He was a compact fellow, and you could tell by seeing him move around that he was going to make a storm, and he matured into the prettiest pile I ever saw. After they had applied the shears to old Arkansas, I had not sent any more to the pit. I just traded them outright. My uncle assured me the pile stag mated to the 5 pullets would produce the greatest chickens on earth. I secured a good yard on a free range with a tenant on our place, and brought every bird he raised. I bred by stag 2 years, walking my young stags, mating the old cocks with pullets, and my choicest stags over my old hens. The next fall, my uncle came to see me and brought Mr. R.B. Shelton and Will Allen with him. Shelton and Allen had a main close to be fought at Allison Wells, Mississippi, with Mr. John Taylor. They said they just wanted to have my cock to pit against a certain weight of Mr. Taylor's, who had already whipped old Hitler. My uncle let them have the cock. The fight came on, and the stag defeated the cock in 2 pittings. That was my first time to see Mr. Shelton. We remained warm friends from that time until his death. He and my uncle bought all of my stock and fought and shipped them everywhere. Mr. Shelton once said to my uncle, "Bill, Gene had the best blues on earth." The last time he visited me, he bought 6 of my choicest brood stags and had them on his brood yard at the time of his death. From the time I was 15 years old until 1918, I bred a few chickens of the purest and best of the old Arkansas travelers. In March 1918, I let my uncle look after my chickens while I was away in the World War. I was gone 11 months and 4 days when I received my discharge. I resolved to purchase a farm and to raise the best travelers possible. My uncle was to buy all that I could spare at a standard price. In the course of 3 years, the demand for the Arkansas travelers and the new well-roundheads continued to increase. The Arkansas Traveler is one of the oldest strains. You can watch all the game journals of today, and wherever pitted, he wins a greater percentage of battles than any other strain you can find. When pitted, the Traveler is eager to go and will give you the very best that is in him at once. This is often in the first pitting. The Travelers come dark blue, light blue, red blue, pile, duckwing red, brown or black red, and occasionally a gray. Legs are generally dark, with now and then white or yellow. Eyes fiery red to black. Weigh 4 pounds, 0.8 ounces to 7 pounds. They are quick to score, and all do not fight alike any more than they are colored alike. Some are smart and careful, and others rush in and bill, shuffle, and roll. However, the smart ones do this in close corners. I have not fought many large mains or tournaments, but my cocks have, and in my customers' hands and in the hands of my uncle and Mr. Shelton, meeting all comers for years with much success. In Juarez in 1926, the greatest cock shown was a little duck-winged red, 5 pounds and 2 ounces, bred by me, and when my uncle won the Greater Memphis Tournament in 1924, my cocks won 100%. Mr. E.J. Dacey of Flint, Michigan, won second money in a tournament last season using 3 of mine, all winning. I could produce hundreds of letters where they have defeated the best in America, but space and time will not permit. I now have 15 well-mated yards, every one bred on free country range, and will say that the demand for them is satisfactory. This in itself is sufficient proof that the Montgomery travelers of today equal the old-time blood of the Sledge and Hannah and Sam H. Jones. I line bred from the very beginning and have kept them that way, having 2 families to select brood stock from. My uncle and myself has exchanged brood cocks with each other until there is no question in our minds as to their ability, gameness, etc. In selecting my brood yards, I am very particular in selecting the hen. The hens must have attention if the breeder succeeds in making his strain meet the demand of the cockers in the pit. This is from Johnson's Breeders and Cockers Guide. I've talked about this book before. They got a little bit of info in here on some of the Nick Arrington birds. Talks about the crippled Tonys. I'm just going to read it verbatim. Not my choice of words here. It was published in a different time, so please keep that in mind. Nick Arrington of North Carolina had a strain of good cutting fowl from Nova Scotia, which were a cross of Irish Grey and Irish Red. He bred the pure Irish Greycock over them on a yard of one of his Negroes, who was called Crippled Tony, hence the name of the strain. Some of the greatest and most colorful mains in cocking history were fought by Nick Arrington of North Carolina. Members of the Arrington family were of English origin and at one time were very wealthy, owning a vast amount of land and other property in North Carolina. He was born in Nash County, North Carolina, December 25th, 1806, 141 years ago at the writing of this book. He was extravagant and could afford to be, for he was born with a silver spoon in his mouth, as the saying goes. He had the most essential qualifications to make a great cocker, and 2, he had the wealth and leisure to pursue his hobby. The greatest characteristics was doing things in a big way. Our modern mains would look pale in comparison to those fought by Nick Arrington. He liked mains that called for a large number of cocks on a side. A main today never exceeds 21. Travel was slow and difficult and often dangerous in his time, but Nick never objected to meeting an opponent on the latter's soil. No regard for distance, time, or money. One of the most colorful mains ever fought between Nick Arrington was with General Santa Anna of Mexico. The Mexican general and great politician was an ardent cocker, and reports of the great American cocker having reached him in Mexico, he wrote Nick and challenged him to a 300 cock main, we are told. He accepted the challenge and prepared a wagon train for a long journey to meet Santa Anna. Other prominent cockers and friends helped to make this train for the long trip to the southeast, across the southeast. Of course, they were heavily armed for protection against bandits and Indians who might have learned of the large sums of money the American cockers carried to wager on their favorites after crossing the border. In those days, according to some historians, the cocks were fought green, that is, little with no condition. After handling 2 or 3 days to get them tame and gentle, the old-timers would tie the gaps on and turn them loose. But the great Arrington overlooked nothing when he met the Mexican leader. Stalls were built in covered wagons, and conditioners worked the cocks on padded tables while the bulky wheeled vehicles rolled over the plains. The exact location of the event is not known, but they met and made camp somewhere north of the Rio Grande River, which is now a part of Texas, but at that time was Mexican territory. What a movie some producer could make of Nick Arrington's wagon train in this colorful Maine. It would really be a relief after the stale run-of-the-mill shoot-'em-up westerns now. It is said that Nick and the general fought for more than a week, and the Maine called for a show of 300 cocks, and probably that many more were hacked. Nick won the Maine, and a fortune changed hands. The exact amount is not known. Okay, this is the same book, and unfortunately there's a printing error on the page, so part of these words were cut off. But for the Arkansas Traveler, it says, the Travelers were originated by Colonel Jim. Last name starts with an R, but then it's cut off. It says, being mostly blood of the old Arrington. After he moved to Arkansas, they became known. They come red-eyed, yellow-legged, pea-combed, and in colors are blue, red, and gray. They are perpetuated by F.E. Montgomery of Wesson, Mississippi. Here's a related line. Knobcomb Blue, originated by B. Shelton of Mississippi. Bloodlines, Cripple Tony Roundhead and Sledge and Hannah Traveler. Description, blue, pea-comb with yellow legs. Here's another one. Who's Your Cyclone? Originator, Dr. Bruce Horn of Indiana. Bloodlines, Joe Redmond Fowl, Traveler, Warhorse, Irish Tassel, Muff, Dom, and an unknown bird. Here's another little one for you. The Blueberg Muff had Knobcomb Blue in it, which, as we stated a little bit earlier, had the Traveler blood in it. Okay, so this little bit here came from a book called The Dictionary of Game Strains. First one on the list, Arkansas Traveler, originated by Colonel Jim Rogers of North Carolina. It says the bloodline is composed of the Nick Arrington fowl. Description, blue, red, gray, pea and straight comb, red eyes, yellow legs. Shows definite relationship to the old Sumatras. Traveler in his own right has a very marked and imperative quality to success through agility. Okay, so here's a little bit of information on the Arkansas Travelers. This is a family tree I put together of a bloodline called the High Creek Blues. You can see there's a lot of stuff in there. But you go clear back down through here, and they've got what they called the Sledge and Hannah Arkansas Travelers, which were a descendant of the Nick Arrington Blues. Now, from what I can tell of the Arthur and Nick Arrington fowl, there was some BB Red English, some White Oriental from India, so that's probably Azil, Blue Spanish, and Irish Gray in them. So the blue is Spanish trait in that particular line.